and welcome to Stampscaping 101. Let's try to finish off these three scenes here. It looks like they're all on the Mohawk Everyday Digital white coated silk paper. It's kind of close to matte, but it has a slight sheen on it, so it gives it a little bit of a luster, and I like that from my surfaces because there's a little bit more retention of media on the surface as opposed to it getting soaked in, okay? I don't know. And then it's not so smooth and coated that you can't use something like chalks or pastels or colored pencil in it. You can, those things work better on matte, but then that's the trade-off there. There's not quite as much media retention. Okay, now I picked up these sponges recently at Target. Just your standard sponge. 99-cent store or something like that. You can probably pick them up. But I'm going to utilize this to apply my inks. Okay, so we're just getting into another household type of item here, and we'll utilize some of the techniques that I just showed recently, and I've shown them a lot in the past about using re-inker fluid to really expedite your process as far as the layered dye-based ink application technique here. Now we can finish these off in different methods, but I'm just going to show you or illustrate just how fast something can go when you're utilizing a decent amount of ink on whatever applicator you're using. Okay, so this isn't specific to sponges or something like that. You can use it with a paper towel, or I've tested out these cotton rounds here recently. Just really cheap items here. And, they work very well, and, the effectiveness to this type of application process is really high, and all of these types of things, even better, are very accessible wherever you are. Okay, I'm going to cut this, I think, into smaller bits, so let me go get a pair of scissors. Okay, trying to decide on what size of sponge would work the best. I think a quarter, maybe? Now, I've always said, hey, just your standard kitchen sponges. I think I've tried it a couple times just with some used sponges. This is the first time I've ever used a new one. When we're getting ready to toss out a sponge, I've just utilized it, and it's typically been those scouring types of sponges with that green, scouring side, but I've used the opposite side, and that worked just fine. Okay, so the properties about that you're looking for in any type of applicators, you want an absorbency kind of factor that's kind of high, okay? Because if a tool doesn't absorb wet media, then it's not going to have the media to deliver or transfer onto your surface here, okay? So things like acrylic types of things, those acrylics and nylon types of things, those types of materials, they're not really great for wet media because they wick moisture, You can kind of force it, but it's not going to, be, a very expedient type of process. And I find that whenever I use those types of materials, it just, I don't know, my arm gets tired, my shoulder, I can really feel it. So it's really having the muscle, kind of the media. Okay, now let's talk about lighting in our scene. This scene right here has a moon. I put a little bit of color over that moon because sometimes it's just too stark white if I just leave it as is. But I want you to look for this type of lighting scheme, okay? So we're going to have source of light, source, and reflected light, okay? So the thing that's separating these two areas within a scene is this area in between. So we're going to go darker, like on the outside edges, and lighter in the middle. Now this reflected light sometimes gets bisected, sometimes it's, it looks more like here's this chapel right here. I don't want that all in darkness or something like that. So we're going to have source of light right here. And my reflected light might look more like that, So it's just, there's usually two areas, and it's that separation within the two that creates reflected light as opposed to it being just one big field of light. So, see this area underneath my moon? There's your break right in here, okay? Now in here, we have our moon, reflecting. And this is, of course, snow in here. So I'm not going to make this snow too dark, okay? Because snow is very reflective of light, okay? I don't know how much it reflects back from a percentage standpoint, but it's really high. I thought it was like something like 80% or something like that, you know, if you look at snow on a mountain or something of that sort. But see this right here? I've just kind of gone in here and, by the way, this is tumbled glass right here. It happens to be a very light ink. This one's Summer Sky from the Memento line. Really fantastic for this purpose. But we've gone in and we've laid down a base layer coat. I don't think there's going to be a lot more ink that's totally necessary on this one, but here it is. Now you can supplement this with your alcohol inks to go in and get, you know, really specific areas that this isn't going to be good for, okay, because it's, you know, a wide applicator, but that's what you're using. It's like if you're painting a house or something like that, you know, you're going to use like a big wide roller for, you know, walls or something like that, but you're not going to use that same, whatever it is, 9-inch roller on your trim around your windows typically, right? So utilize, you know, whatever tools, you know, for the purpose that they're ideal for, okay? You know, you go in here and adding that. You can use colored pencils on here and hit the shadows. Like right in here, I'm kind of coloring in some of my additional shadow areas. Like there's kind of darker areas on my rocks, okay? So where do you add shadows? Look at the design, and if there's a darker area on the design, you can hit it again. See this right in here? I'm hitting it with a very light color at first because you can always go darker, okay? So you can see how fast, I mean, this kind of lighting scheme and coloring scheme came around. Can you see this right here? Open like that, and lighting coming through here. So this is kind of an open area. So that this area right here is kind of light, but then I separate that a little bit, you know, because there's this river and rocks, and then this area right over here is light. But for the most part, you get this area of lighting right here, and there's an area of light right there. Okay, so let's just, you know, keep this same color on here. Let's just do some winter scenes, okay, because, you know, just so I don't have to keep changing colors, but I just want to show you how fast this can come about when you use that re-inker fluid. Let's see if I still have enough re-inker fluid on here. I didn't put a ton of it on here. It was, I don't know, it was probably the equivalent of like maybe 10 drops or so, maybe? Okay, now watch this one. This one I don't have like an official moon or something like that, so I am just designating an area in those clouds to be light, all right? Now structures are, you know, their own type of thing, so I'm going to color the side of that, the vertical sides, the walls, okay? And we'll put some color on that so that the rooftop looks like it's being top lit. And down here, so it's kind of like light, separation, light right here, separation of dark, okay? And then we have this little area down here in our meadow, and we will keep that light, okay? Now I'm purposely, I should really re-ink this, but I'm just kind of purposely utilizing it just so you can see just how far this goes. And one of the things about, okay, one of the things as I'm, you know, talking about this and going through this is I really haven't thought about my sponge at all. Okay, I wasn't thinking about, okay, is this working or not? And that's a good thing. When you're not thinking about your applicator or having to think about it, okay, that's a good thing. So it's less like you're just concentrating on what you're doing. I haven't used these sponges before. This is the first time, you know, I've used other ones, you know, but kind of it's more little experiments, but I'm using this now as like, I don't know, it feels as good as if I've used it a million times, okay? See this right here? We're going in. Can you see that lighting developing even more? Okay, see that right there? So we have light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. All right, so instead of this just being one area, we have it bisected, okay? It's like this one right here. You're bisecting that light. You can trisect it, whatever, you know. This is a small card, so you're not going to have, like, I don't think you're going to have, you know, this oscillation of light and dark going 20 times or something like that. You could, but I don't know. It would be really small spaces of light. So this is kind of, you know, a nice dramatic look here. in terms of it's like a stage where you have a spotlight on something. Okay, we don't have like a formal beam going across there like that. Okay, now this one right here is a real similar composition to this, except we're just not utilizing that formal moon right there. So I'll show you how to create your lighting up here, or this one way, okay? So we're taking this and we're just going to add in like a streak across there like that. And then you can add in another streak like this, but retain kind of an area of white in there, okay? And that's real common, place when you look at, a sky of any sort. You might have all blue sky or something like that, but typically kind of in the more interesting times of day, before the sun rises or, when it's setting or something like that, there's variations. You can see clouds or something like that. You could make this all just blue or something like that if you want to, but I would say, when we're doing scenes like this, we might as well just go for drama. We're not necessarily going for realism and the most common sight available, when we're not even kind of consciously aware of our setting. We're typically made aware of, the sky and kind of the environment when it looks different, okay? So sunsets or something like that, they're just more dramatic like that. Or if you see a full moon rising, it gets our attention, we look at it. Or just, some beautiful cloud patterns or something of that sort in, a twilight sky. It's like, oh my gosh, look at that sky, right? So why don't we, so the thing is that when you're creating scenes, you can do those types of things, you don't have to go for something, um, that's not attention getting. And plus, we want our cards to, be, fairly direct. We want our cards to be those types of things where someone looks at it and says, oh, they want to get you want to get that same type of reaction or a similar reaction to what someone would get when looking at kind of a more dramatic setting, okay? All right, so re-ink this again a little bit, So if you can go darker using your existing color, then use more ink, okay? But then when you know to move on, it's just when it won't get any darker, with, no matter how much you apply, okay? It means that color has achieved its full saturation, okay? All right, now I'd recommend starting light like this. It's really super user-friendly. Let's get a little color in there. It was a little bit too light in some areas. Okay, but there's your first color, okay? Now you don't do that with every color, okay? After that, you move into your pads or something like that. We've achieved super saturation and our lighting scheme using that first color. So now you're just utilizing that same ink right there in conjunction with your, medium tone, or if you have another lighter blue, you can put it on there as a go-between your medium tones or whatnot. But you kind of are creating a medium tone just by simply utilizing that same area of your sponge that has your previous ink with your new one. It's a combination of the two, right? So where do we put this? We just add it in, but you just use a little bit less, okay? The sponge is working really fantastic, I'd have to say. Which my Colorbox Stylus tools, which are my all-time favorite applicators right here, okay? But this is a sponge too, right? It's just not as fine a sponge. Now, if you can find better quality sponges, but I don't know, these kitchen sponges are working fine for me. Then maybe get a denser one or something like that. I don't know. Scotch-Brite, right? Someone's going to repackage sponges and call them, I don't know, magic, whatever, block blending applicators or something like that. I always kind of joke about that one. We see these kind of things just utilized in crafting that comes from, you know, they're existing products, but they come from different things, and they just kind of repackage them and remarket them as something else. Um, okay, but anyway, filling in. Okay. I don't use quite as much of my second color as I did with my first, usually. Okay, the darker we go, we just use less and less of it. Okay, see that? You know, the darker I go, the more kind of apparent the lighting is, because we're creating more contrast as we do this. Okay. What are we at? We're at the 13. I don't know. I restarted this because I had to go get my scissor, but I don't know. This is like 15 minutes, and we're almost done with like 3 cards here. Okay. Okay. That is the Bahama blue. Let's try the Danube blue. I'm probably going to dip into my Marvy pads. You know, the Marvy pads are just going to be a little bit brighter. They don't need to be so bright, maybe, on this more matte style paper. You know, we're not necessarily going for, you know, super vibrancy, but I do like a little bit more brightness. Okay, so that's it with the darker tones. Remember, the darker tones, you stay a little bit more perimeter oriented. Okay. Okay, now here's the thing. Hey, that texture in there looks pretty good. Let's get a little bit of that texture going in there. It definitely has the texture of the sponge here, but I don't know. Looks pretty good. Oh, okay, now see, here's the thing. Because we use that re-inker fluid and the paper itself. I mean, this paper isn't wet or anything like that, you know. I'm getting it because I'm putting my fingers right into it, but, you know, if I put a clean finger in it, that, you know, ink isn't coming off. But we've achieved a little bit of a saturation with our pulp and surface. So if I go like that, okay, see how easily that's, you know, that just blends out? So the benefits of re-inkers, it just gets you the right amount of ink for this type of technique to make the, you know, to create ease of color applications. The ease of color applications really isn't so much the lightest color. It's more about the darker tones and getting those to blend in really gracefully, okay? And that's what that first step was about. It's not about your technique really so much with the darker tones. It's just prepping the surface in anticipation of those darker tones so that when you get to them, they're just really easy to blend in, okay? You don't get this, you know, you're not going to get this harsh mark like that, okay, that can't blend out, you know, when you have this surface going already. Okay, so let's go for a like super harsh mark right there, but watch this. See how that blends in just, you know, nice and gracefully? Okay, now up here we have that moon, so I'm going to be careful not to tone that moon out. All right. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be using this paper sponge, you know, all the time. Paper towels work really good too. The paper towels probably get a little bit more detailed. I guess I can go like this, you know, and have like a kind of like a little eraser-sized application of that, so I can get, you know, right at the base of this chapel if I want, or the, you know, the trees here. Okay. All right, that is that color there. Let's use some of, let's just go with, this Prussian blue is really, really dark. Let me go with the lighter blue. Okay, this lighter blue looks like the Memento, but this light blue from Marvy is, you know, quite a bit brighter. And see that right there? It's just so much brighter. But I like it in conjunction with kind of the duller tones too, so that I have a nice range of intensity from bright to less bright or dull. Okay, see that right there? Okay. Okay, that looks pretty good. See, the intensity level went up on these pieces with that. Let me see. I don't think did I do it on this one? I didn't do it on this one. Okay. I'm saying, which one didn't I use? Okay, now remember the first time I used this pad, there was a lot of the other ink in it too, so now utilizing it, it's more the full version of, this number 10. I don't know, maybe I used it on this one. I don't know. Okay, so that is that. Let's go with the Prussian blue. Prussian blue is pretty dark, but remember there's a lot of the the number 10 blue in it at this point in time. The more I utilize this, the more pure it becomes of that color. Okay. All right. That. That is that. I don't know. I'm not sure if that even took 1 minute on that color. Okay. Now, I don't know, I don't know if, excuse me, I don't know if people would do this type of thing for their Christmas cards, but this is just coming to show you, I mean, you could do Christmas cards, if you're going to do 15 or 20 of these different compositions like this. If you do it in this assembly line kind of style, it's a possibility. I don't know if I would, but I get bored doing the same card, even 2 times sometimes. But it's within the realm of possibilities with this sort of assembly line style. All right, that's that. Okay, let's have some fun here with. Let's grab a couple markers here. We're working in blue tones, right? See these right here? Kind of maybe not the green there, but kind of lighter tones right there, okay? So let's go in and just reiterate some of these shadow areas in here. Get the side of the chapel, maybe. Side of the chapel kind of away from the light. All right. Here like so. See, those rocks are darker there, so you're just kind of going in and coloring them in like so. I'll finish these off with some splatter painting. I kind of laugh because I don't know. Splatter painting is it's one of those things that kids do in like school, like when you're like in kindergarten or something like that. Not a lot of dexterity needed. Okay, this is just a lighter blue right here. I don't know, we can go in and, I've talked about kind of a lighter warm tone before, just to kind of add, a slight temperature change. Okay, this one's a little bit of like a peach. Okay, I wouldn't go in here with like a light tone, like a warm tone, like a canary yellow or something like that, but let's just go in. I'll show you what this can do, okay? Oops. Okay. Let's see if you can see the difference here between these two. Do you see that? Can you tell which one has the slight warm tinge to it? This one right here, right? So see, when you do something like that, what you're doing is you're extending ever so slightly the temperature range of a scene, where you're taking it from. See that starting to glow right in there? You can do it like a pale green or something like that, or something of that sort. See this right here? See, what we've done is it was completely cool in terms of the temperature scale, right? But then if you add just a slight touch of warmth to it, now suddenly you have warm and cool, where before it was just cool tones, okay? Here, let's do it down here like this, okay? Let's put some on that rooftop. Let's throw this in here. This is called beige. You probably have something like that in your Copic markers. Here, let me show you. Here's kind of a very dull, this is called pale green, Okay, and we do have some grass down here, add some of that. Let's see if you can see a little bit of a difference. This is like a, I don't know, it's like a very pale, pale green. It's like a 5%, but you see this kind of glow working in here now? See that? See, it's not stark white anymore like that, okay? Maybe some on the rooftop or, back here in the trees if you want. Okay. This is probably the first one that I used the Prussian blue on because it was loaded up still with so much of the other uh, ink, the previous inks that were used on there. All right, let's go in and finish these off. Now, I would add more tones to this and kind of push it a little bit more normally, but let's just kind of for expediency sake just move right on into the splatter painting. Splatter painting part of the show. Okay, getting your bleed-proof white, kind of the right consistency here. Loading up. Okay, kind of in the top tip. Don't load up your whole brush. That'd be way too much. Okay. And kind of take off the excess. So it's it's, I don't know if it's using it sparingly, not really, but you just don't want a ton of it. Okay, I'm kind of off my page when I start splattering on. I'm not right over it, because you can get a drip that way. Okay, but let's see if we can see some of this. Now this one is very light, okay? The scene, there's not a lot of contrast, so I'm going to use, probably a little bit more of this than I normally would. Okay, now when it's a little bit wetter, you get a little bit more variation, but when it starts getting dry on this, the spray is very fine, so sometimes I don't want that fine, like dusted, spray, but here you have it like that. Didn't that add kind of a lot to it? Yeah, in terms of kind of an overall look. I mean, it's certainly, you throw that splatter painting on there, and it definitely says, winter, or the beginning of winter. I guess on the one with the snow, it's deep into winter. Now this one right here is in the grass, so maybe this is like the first, dusting of snow of the season or something of that sort. Now if you're doing the splatter painting type of thing in your sky, then it represents stars. But when you have it in front of things, okay, it becomes snow. All right, that is that. I tend to go overboard on the snow because it's just darn fun to do. Okay, that snow really dries fast. The Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white, really, it's kind of a chalky type of almost... it has like the feel of like correctional fluid, okay? It's a watercolor paint, but whatever that white is that they use in it is probably similar to the, whiteout pens. Some people used to take a whiteout pen and just, shake it. I don't know what type of pen they used, but they said it worked fine, and I saw it, and it looks good. Now, see, I can go over my page like this because it's dry on here. I've already splattered a lot, so, it's not going to, drip onto my piece anymore. You get this white thumb here, and underneath the water sink, it comes right off. This, I have this sent out for a couple days before it, before I rinse it off quite often, and, it comes off just fine. Okay. Let's go in with our white paint pen here and do a little bit of fine, finishing touches, okay? So I've added, those speckled, little dots of paint everywhere over the whole thing. We're just taking a 0.7 millimeter acrylic paint pen, okay? Now I can go in and just, see down here in my water, I've lost a lot of my little snow-covered rocks in the water because I've colored in there. I wasn't, trying to work around a little rock. It's because we can just go back and reclaim them with a white pen. Why mask those off when you just, that's going to take a lot longer to do than just going back in there and just hitting them again, with a white paint pen. So these trees right here, I like to put a little bit of snow on the branches like this, okay? I start where the branch usually comes in contact with the trunk, and then I just do a little line like that, okay? Or you can do little highlights like this up the trunk, okay? If you ever put too much, which I often do with this, you can just wipe it right off or scrape it off. Here's a scratch knife. You can just take it right off. Okay, let's see, little highlights on our, cloud. You can get some of these little snowballs a little bit, bigger, just so you have variation. There's some, little snowflakes that are closer to us. Okay, but I think that's about right. But look at what that did down there. Doesn't that really bring that area to life a little bit more? Here's what it looks like without, okay? Now this is a lot lighter, so on something like this, what I might do is I might, use a lot more of this. So there's these snowy little areas in here. I can kind of reclaim, the snowy part of it. And if you don't know where to do it, just look at the design. The design has lighter areas on it. So I'm just going in and reiterating. See this rock right here? Okay? It's all colored in, but what I'm doing is I'm just reclaiming that white area. Now sometimes it starts to look a little bit too much, so you can kind of have a little bit more paint on the top. And then you just use less of it down below. Okay? See this right here? I mean, it doesn't take a lot of technique, okay? You don't have to be a painter, or something like that. Just kind of scribble it around. It can kind of look out of place sometimes if you just do it on one thing. But then you bring that texture around into different areas, okay? And it starts to make sense from a textural and lighting standpoint because this is a light pen, okay? A little bit of highlights on some trees, snowy branches, right? Not being super careful to keep the line on the branch. Oh, we have something like this going on. This is kind of a Christmas card type of thing, so let me put something right here. There's a little bit of a dot, okay? I go down and that. Okay. You have a little bit of a North Star type of thing. It's kind of subtle right there, but, I don't know. Let's see, bring it down a little bit more. There we go. Okay. I mean, when you put that North Star in there, it really says Christmas too. Something like that. You can do it in silver pen or something like that. Okay, and let's see right here. This one, I don't know. Let's put a little bit on this. A little bit of snow kind of building up on these pines here in the foreground. There's the leafless pine again. You can put a little bit of snow or specular light down in here in this lighting area. You can put a little bit on the rooftop, a little bit of snow kind of landing on that. This is like first snow of the year type of thing, so there's not a lot of, there's no snow on anything, but you can kind of build it up a little bit like this. Okay, so I would say that makes that. There are 3 cards here, and, we didn't use colors sparingly on these. We went for a full, range of tones. And this would make kind of an interesting triptych. Maybe not with these kind of being the similar or the same composition right here, but I don't know. What is it? We're at the 32-minute mark, and I think that's when I started coloring. Yeah. Okay. So this is like 30 minutes right here. We used where's my, okay, we used the tumbled glass, the Bahama blue, the Danube blue, the light blue Marvy, and the Prussian blue. So this is 5 colors, layered colors on each one of these scenes right here. We did the bleed-proof white and, splatter painted that on. Okay, and then we did our white paint pen work on here. So, yeah, I mean, not too bad. 3 complete scenes. That was about, I don't know, roughly 10 minutes each from start to finish. Now, the scenes were stamped out first, from my previous, whatever composition, I think, class or video. But as far as your coloring goes, this is really making, a pretty good full value, intensity, lighting statement, and going in and adding those fine-tuning kind of textural contrasts and lighting contrast too, since these are white, okay? So I think that worked out really fantastic. And again, if you have kind of your base layers kind of taken care of, because the base layer gets the most amount of coverage, if you have that taken care of, with an applicator like this and just some re-inker fluid, it can really go pretty fast for you. And, it's just so much easier to apply. And then you have so much easier of a time by the time you get to your, your mid-tones and darker tones in terms of blending them in. You get kind of a mark you don't like, it just blends right in. And this isn't even on glossy cardstock either. This is your, that satiny type of cardstock. So they call it silk here. So it's fairly absorbent. So, adjust accordingly. Don't super load, your applicator with this, because we don't want it so saturated that the darker tones won't even apply, because the surfaces are just can't take any more ink. So you'll get the feel of it, and you can adjust accordingly. Okay, so anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below. Always love hearing from you. Thanks as always for tuning into the channel.